Welcome back to the This Day podcast, where we connect real life, real people, and real stories. Tune in to a brand new episode happening right now. Make sure you click the links in our descriptions to find out more about our sponsors and resources where you can dive in deeper to your faith journey. And now, dive in to today's episode. Hi, friends. Thank you so much for listening to the This Day podcast. We have one of our friends, Dwell Apparel, as our podcast sponsor and partner. We love Dwell. They are a faith-based clothing company, and you can get everything from a t-shirt themed to your favorite holiday with a fun scripture to a tumbler to stickers to sweatshirts, literally everything you could imagine. They are incredible. My cousin got all of these fun shirts for her summer VBS. It's amazing. You need to check out Dwell today. You can click the link in the show description or use code MEGFEVERYEAR for 15% off your first order from Dwell. Leah, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for being here. Why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about who you are and what you're about? For some new friends that may not know all about what you do.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm glad it finally worked out. So I am a birth mom of now 22 years, and that's just shaped all that I do. From that experience of being pregnant at 16 and just the love and the support that I received from my family and my community, and even my daughter's adoptive parents and within open adoption, and just how that shaped my life. And now I love to be able to extend that education of how that's changed my life and how to support other birth moms or other unintended pregnancies, and just supporting just all parts of the triad and birth moms to build community and have that support as well. So I've written books and devotionals, and just really have a heart for all of it to make better experiences within adoption. But especially have a heart for adopted parents, just because I was loved so well by her parents and love to be able to share, how they can make a big impact in these birth parents' lives that are connected to the children that they love too.
Absolutely. That's so important too. And your story is unique and truly you were loved by those adoptive parents. So talk a little bit more about that and how that played into your story today.
Yeah, so I think any birth mom, you don't go into this wanting this experience. It's
Yeah.
not something you really, you know, plan for or really want to do. But in this decision, um, they became so important because, especially 22, almost 23 years ago, it wasn't the norm to really feel included and invited into this relationship. And so to feel like I did have a place into this relationship and into what we wanted this open adoption to look like really had an impact on me, not just within the adoption, but also as a 16-year-old, that my life was still being shaped by these experiences. And I'm growing as a person and wanting to be a healthier person, to be someone who she's proud of one day, shifting away from the decisions that I was making that were harmful to myself and to just wasn't feeling it wasn't me. And so for them to also be a positive role model in my life just became, unimaginable of how those little moments through our journey has impacted my life and benefited all of us in the long haul. So what that looked like, when I met them at 7 months pregnant, and wrestled with my decision for a while, really thinking I was going to parent and wanted to parent, but just could not find peace with parenting. Even though I had the support to parent, it just did not feel right. And so when I went to find parents, I was really thinking, who would I want to be if I could parent? And they were who I wanted for her, to provide that stability for her and to provide her a foundation of, faith, and especially having a father figure involved, and just wanting stability overall for her, and for them to provide that for her, but also it in a way provided that for me as well, because they've consistently been that stable presence in my life as well as a birth mom. And so meeting them at 7 months, they, their hearts just were very different, and how they interacted with me compared to like other conversations I had had with other potential couples. And it really felt like, yes, they wanted to adopt her, but I was important too. And that just that alone, of that mindset that I mattered to, and that I was invited to be a part of this family, and using language of, we would love to adopt her, but you're a part of that too. And we want you here to fill in these pieces into her life that we know we can. And I think that invitation was just a big part of that changing all of our lives. And to be worthy to sit in that place, and to still have a literal spot at the table, at their dinner table sometimes, and to be there for her birthday parties, and to just, they upheld their commitments for 18 years and beyond. And so there's a lot to unpack within that, but just that invitation alone, and that open heart towards me was a big, it just changed everything. And I'm so grateful for that.
No, that's beautiful. And I think you said something so important when you were walking through your story there, is to feel worthy and to have a spot at the table. Like so often, we just see, I think even more so in Christian culture, which is the hard part of it, where people don't feel welcomed because of whatever the circumstance or situation could be. They just don't feel welcomed at a table or at a spot. And that's just beautiful to think that, they welcomed you in, they opened their home, that like you got to be a part of all of these core memories that you'll have for the rest of your life.
Yeah, yeah. And it's not lost on me too that as a birth mom, the opportunity to have that spot at the table, and to have all the, like you said, these core memories throughout her life that we've been able to build together, but also as she's gotten older individually, the two of us, of my daughter and I, it's not lost on me that that's, especially back then, like it's uncommon, and it's something that other birth moms don't have that opportunity. They don't get that invitation, even if there's not a safety reason to have that wall up. And so it's not lost on me that just how grateful I am for those moments that we get to have together, and that they and allowed that space. And that's really why I educate, and to help other people see, like, birth moms in general aren't scary people that, want to take our kids back, but just want to be present for those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when did you know that God was kind of pressing on your heart that you had to do more than just, you know, be not just be at home, but like you had to speak about your story?
Yeah. So going through the experience of my pregnancy and choosing adoption, it all kind of, because my adoption story is really tied into my testimony. It
Yeah.
all kind of felt miraculous as I was experiencing it, because of these little just moments of clarity that I would get from God. And so like I said, I wanted to parent, but I was seeking God of, like, what do you want me to do?
Mm.
Time is running out. I need to either choose a family, or choose, you know, how to choose to parent, and figure out all the things that go with that, and, gather baby supplies and things. And so that desperation of, like, I just want peace, tell me what to do, is what led me to God. And at 7 months, like, the day I chose to follow the Lord was the day that I really felt pressed to choose open adoption, and to trust him with that. And from that moment, it just became so clear of these little, like, signs and things that would happen. And so when I'm, for example of that, in my book, I talk about how I had named her Kaylee Ann, and when I chose her parents, they had also picked out a name, and I was like, would you consider keeping her name? And it turns out that they had picked Kayla Ann. And so they're like, Kaylee's perfect. So it's just the fact like God put a very similar name with that's tied to family members on both sides of her life. And things like that just kept happening where it felt very clear that God was within all this. And it gave me peace and assurance every step of the way. And so through that experience, I also was writing and blogging. And at the time, it was more public, I mean, or private. It was more private with, my close friends and things like that. And then as she got older, I shared more publicly, and the reaction I think I got from that of this story's incredible, and
Yeah.
God was so in it, and I just felt like really from the beginning that this story was one that people needed to hear of how it can be done well. And it doesn't mean that it's not hard, that there's absolutely complexities, there's still grief, there's still all these things to work through, but there's still a lot of redemption and beauty that can come from it as well. And so I've always been sharing my story. It's just grown in the capacity of what that's looked like. And um, even when she was, my first speaking engagement was just a few months after her birth, sharing with a panel of hospital staff of how to care for birth mother perspectives in the hospital experience, and spoke at retreats. And just through the years, it's just snowballed into more. But I think I've always felt this deep knowing from God that like this story has it's impacted all of our lives, but it's also going to impact others. And it's been really neat to see what that's looked like and the feedback of how it's changed other people's stories over the last 22 years. It's been neat.
It's beautiful. So let's talk about your book more. Um, and just the importance of the message that you put into it. What do you hope that like when people read your book and hear your story that they get out of it?
Yeah. I always answer this question like it depends on the audience because
Yeah.
the majority readers that I get are adoptive parents because adoptive parents want to know how do I love this birth parent well that's in our life? How do we, obviously every story's so different, every birth parent's different. People interact differently and have different personalities, but there's so many tangible ways that I talk about in the book, especially like in the hospital experience of things that anybody can do in those moments that you do have with a birth mom. And so that's for me, one of the biggest things I wanted to show was adoptive parents of just that perspective from the other side to have greater compassion for this really difficult decision that we're making, those really heavy moments in the hospital that's, on, adoptive parent side is so joyful and like you're bringing home a baby and there's so much excitement, but there's also this balance of extreme grief and loss and how to balance that both and that can come in those really hard moments,
Yeah.
and how to bridge that and to care for one another. And compassion, I feel like, is the biggest bridge to that for any side. So, yeah, just that greater understanding of birth parent experiences, that it's not a decision that's easy, that it's a decision that we carry with us every single day. But again, the beauty that can come within that when that role is honored and how to cultivate those relationships when possible. For birth moms, I really want to show that hope and healing is possible, that we can, while we've walked these really hard things, we don't have to stay stuck there. And also just support really matters. So to get in community, go to the retreats, go to the support groups, and how faith can be a big part of that as well, because it was a big part of my journey and it still is. And same thing with like, if it's just a mom who's experiencing an unplanned pregnancy, that while I don't feel like adoption is the best option for everybody, that it's just knowing that that support is out there, and that there is hope no matter what happens. I do talk about my second unplanned pregnancy as well in my book and just how God worked that out in a completely different way. And so I like that I hope that it gives hope to people no matter what they're walking through, that God can be so in it when we seek Him. And, He works it out for good for those who love Him.
Absolutely. Now, what on this journey has been the biggest thing that you've learned, that you would say to the person maybe listening to this that is walking through this similar thing that you've walked through?
Hmm. I think just being in the birth mother community, I think the biggest thing is the support of one another.
Yeah.
There's being a birth mom can be extremely isolating. And like I remember I was 16, still in high school, like finishing out all that and like going into college, and I truly felt alone in my community. I still feel alone in my community. I
Yeah.
don't know where other birth moms are because it's not something you just print on a t-shirt and like you walk around proudly talking about, because there
Yeah.
is so much shame and stigma still. And so for me, the internet has been such a gift to find my community of birth moms and others who, even if we have different stories and experiences, or, mine's more positive and some have walked through really harder situations and weren't invited to the table and things, but we can hold that space together and really understand one another in a way that others can't. And so that community is what keeps me going, of like why I do what I do, to advocate for more birth moms to have that invitation and to feel loved and welcome. And whether they have that or not, that there's a community here that does invite them in. And just that, to have someone who understands the depths of the ache of adoption, but also the joys of celebrating the positive moments too, is really impactful. And I feel like that's true for any kind of, place we find ourselves in life, whether that's like a new mom or, um, adoptive parents or adoptees. Like those niche communities are so important. And that's the same for birth moms too. And it keeps me going.
That's beautiful. Now, one question we ask people that come on the podcast is what keeps you present and grounded during today? Because so much comes for our attention. We can be like in the best mindset when we wake up and then be just totally down and upset by the end of the day. So, what keeps you rooted? What keeps you grounded?
Mm. To be honest, I struggle with it sometimes because my life is chaotic. I didn't say this in the intro, but I have like 5 kids that I parent and, run a
Yeah.
nonprofit, and I, work and travel and do all the things. And so it can be really easy just to like start my day and just run with it and lose steam. And I've, in this journey have really found that pausing before beginning the day and being in prayer, doing a devotional and worship music keeps just that fire inside, and the peace, and, just having clarity for all the things, all the moments that happen in a day. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I have a Spotify list that I just kind of keep that on as much as possible.
Lovely. Now, where can people keep up with you? Where can they find your book and hear about everything that you're up to?
Yeah, so everything lives on my website, leahoutten.com. You can also find me by my name on Instagram and Facebook. My nonprofit that supports birth moms, and we have an annual retreat, is called the Ampersand Initiative. And my books are available on Amazon.
That's so fun. Leah, thank you so much for being with us today, for just sharing your story. I'm so excited for all that God has in store for you. And I know that it's a beautiful story that He's going to continue to write.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, friends, thanks so much for tuning into the podcast today. Have you checked out the ministry resources that we have available just for you? We have devotionals available to help you deepen your faith journey. We have a Christmas devotional, Rumors of a Savior. It is never too late for Christmas, so I highly recommend that one. Or we have our Reclaiming Boldness devotional, which is 60 days just to reclaim the boldness that God put in your bones. So jump on in, check out those devotionals. They're available on Amazon, or you can shoot us a message over at thisdayministry.org and get your copy of the devotional today. Click the link in our show description to find out more. We love each and every guest that we get to have on the podcast. Be sure to stay connected with us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at This Day Ministry. We would love to connect with you, pray for you, and just know what's going on in your story.